So, what I'm working on right now is creating function, or maybe not function. Yes, it will create function for the hanging of the pants. So we're gonna make these marks a little bit more intentional. Alright, so what we're working on today, right now, are being intentional about these markings on the pants from hanging. And so I have my clothes all hanging up in a way it's not necessarily my clothes. I feel pretty detached from them because I feel like they're living their own stories. And so I pulled these pants out a couple times to wear them, and I just couldn't do it. I had these big marks on them, and I felt like they needed a little bit of love. So I'm thinking about a material that will go onto here, and maybe so when the pants are hanging, it's like this. It's like that. So it has the top parts can be the things that are being hung safely, because I do have, this is how it goes. These clip onto here, but that's what's making the mark. So I'm thinking of putting something wider than this though. Well, I have this whole bag of fun stuff right here. It's just it's the stuffing, fun stuffing. And I do also have I don't know why the vision I get is red. This red here, it's from a jacket from my childhood, this red velvet jacket from my childhood. So I took apart the sleeve, I took off the sleeve, and then I cut the sleeve into pieces of bias, and it's not like a full 45-degree angle bias, but it's enough to be somewhat flexible and not just on the straight of grain. So if you know what that means, that's great. If not, that's great too. I mean, I'd like to make a video dedicated towards talking about the grain of fabric, because that's really important characteristic of how fabric moves, how it drapes, and how it performs, how easy it is to sew, or how much ease you have to have. So yeah. So I'm thinking having something here, something up here, holding the pants, something here to connect the two, and then something here to be in communication with the rest. Because there's still a mark here. It's still like at the center of the sandwich, so the center of the sandwich or the center of the flower, the center of like a book, like a page in a book. When you open it up, that's what it's like. Let's see, what book? Pow! Pow! These are old classic stories. Okay, so I was thinking about this texture and how the velvet, it also has these fibers on it that have a texture, and that's what's getting crushed. So the clamps would essentially do the same thing to the velvet as they would this. So, but I still love what the velvet is like in this. I'm thinking of introducing this webbing because of the texture and the color and the support, because it's pretty strong. It would hold up on here. So it also has Velcro. When I think about deconstructing this particular thing or salvaging bits off of this duffel bag, I need something to connect here. So maybe I'll put some Velcro on that. And I was already thinking of doing a project with this duffel bag. I want to turn it into a backpack. I got this duffel bag from the Rotary auction on Bainbridge Island, and so if there's any Rotary auctions in your area, this was a really great resource just to get materials for me. I need 2, right? I wonder how much I really need, like... Okay, so I want it to cover... This is on the crease here, so I want it to cover up to the crease mark, and I want it to cover the clamp. And then this one here. So let's see. Let's compare the lengths. And in case you didn't know, the traditional way, the traditional way in tailoring for where the crease lines fall on the pants, it's decided by where the inseams meet up. So what you, the inseam and the outseam. So what you do is you match up the inseam and the outseam. You pull it till it's flat on the edge. And then you do the same thing with this one. You line up all the inseams together. And that's how you find the crease. And then usually the crease, I mean with these, when you're working with worn pants, it's interesting because this is how they're made, how they're usually made originally, but then through wear, I mean unless you're getting things dry cleaned or something, which I would do some research on that because there's a lot of pollutions that go into dry cleaners, but there are also new processes that are being developed that are a lot cleaner and a lot more environmental friendly. So if you go through something like that, they would probably re-crease your pants where they should be, or they do something. So what I'm getting at is that for the life of a garment, when it's made with a certain kind of integrity, but once it starts to be worn and used and shaped and by your body, maybe certain areas stretch out, certain areas don't stretch out, certain areas get wear. So the creases can kind of shift. So when working with living, worn garments with character already in them, see, I could lay these pants out based on what I told you, what I explained. But it looks like there might be some I would just follow the crease line. For this one I want to follow the crease line of what the garment holds to. So then right around this area is when I'm going to do that embellishment, communication. And right here. Okay. So at some point the creases will fade out, usually when around the butt area and the crotch area, usually the creases start to fade out. But I wouldn't say that that's a rule. There might be some kind of rule in traditional English tailoring, but in this age there are not really rules when it comes to experimental design and fashion and expression. So, and I do want to talk a lot about that. So I'm passionate about transforming the stigmas that box and cage people into stereotypes or dress code policies that can be limiting in terms of self-expression. But there's a lot of times it's up for interpretation too, so like what's casual, what's dressy, what's all these things in these words, they have like root meanings from a long time ago, and through the ages we redefine them as individuals and as communities and as societies, so just keep that in mind. I'm gonna get my tape measure. So it looks like this one's extending out past the crease line around 1 3/4. This one not so much. But that's why I'm measuring, because I want the Velcro to be the same length here and here when they match up. Actually, now that I think of this, it's really funny because I think it might be uncomfortable walking around with Velcro between your legs. Huh. Alright. Wait. Pause. I like this part. I'm going to take the webbing off of here. I think I want to salvage this piece. So inside the bag there's a binding. Looks like waterproof kind of material. Like something that's more waterproof than this, which is woven. This one is more of a plasticky kind of material. Something that, definitely has needle holes in it. Okay, well, since it's not really salvageable, Because in the needle holes, I mean, maybe the inner part can be. The needle holes give this outer part, they make it non-functionable if we were to stitch on this same line again. So in that case, I'm not too worried about ripping it. Although it can serve a function for something. So let's just clear this area where I want to get to the webbing, which is over here. So, as I'm taking apart this webbing to honor the life that this bag had, and what it held before transformation, and then even before that, like, the materials are made from a plastic-like material, and plastic is made from oil, so, and oil is sacred. Anything can be sacred if we make it sacred to us, if we remember the meaning of it, and if we remember that we're all connected. And in this process of restoration, I just really want to care about these objects. Because it's not just about taking something and turning it into something else. It's also the process of acknowledgement, acceptance, and movement towards the recreation. So what I am going to acknowledge is that the journey of these materials came from a very wild, deep part of the core of the earth, and then through industrialization was transformed into these materials. And when we carry bags. We're traveling. We're traveling away from home, possibly. Living our lives. In this particular part of the webbing, it has there's a logo on it, this name. It says Motions. And it looks like there's kind of like a railroad track image, and up here it looks like a cloud or something. It's an embroidered label. And it's finished with some kind of wrap. There's some kind of like thread that's wrapped around the edge of it to keep it from fraying. And this particular part of the webbing, it's securing the handles. It's also securing the structure of the bag, possibly so when you hold it, it's like, it's not going to get all floppy. It's providing some sort of rigidity to disperse the weight distribution of where this tension is. That's part of the design. And so now I'm taking that off. This inherent weight redistributor, it's actually going to still be a weight distributor in some way, because on the pants, it's actually less of a weight distributor and more of a, because it's not distributing weight necessarily, it's just holding two particular points in a folded position. Oh, weight redistributor. Like, are there things in our lives that need to be redistributed? Like our energy and the things that we think about? Like, where does our mind rest? Does it even rest? Are we cultivating our meditation practices? What drew me to this bag was the color. I love the faded red color. But I also love the texture. Red is like, for a dye, red is, as a color, it fades the quickest in the sun. With most dyes that I know of. red is also like the so I'm thinking about a lot of things. I'm thinking about where my mind is resting, and it rests inside my body throughout my feet, my toes, all the way up through my arms, my hands, my fingers, all the way up through my head. So I can feel into my entire body with every breath. And then release it. And another place my mind likes to rest is just this, in the place of illumination. And as I'm transforming this material, as I'm touching it and holding it and releasing this from the weight, it becomes charged with the field of infinite love, because that's the vibration where I'm resonating, and that's the vibration that brings healing to anything and everything. Inside. So I like the idea that transforming materials like this not only gives them more life, but it's also a form of natural divination. Because when we tune into anything, when we tune into the song of the universe, that's the answer to any question. Isn't that what divination is? A system for answers? Well, we are the system. We live in the system. Our life, our awareness, and our consciousness, and what we pay attention to, that's our answer. Now, we can ask a different question, like, what would your question be? And would it come from the depths of your heart and your being and what you truly want that's meaningful to you and your story? And what's meaningful to me in my story is to just to give life to things that are otherwise wasted or that are otherwise condemned. I mean, what gives me meaning is recycling, and not just recycling the same thing over and over again, but really transcending the perspective of what waste is. Because nature will naturally transform waste. Now I'm picking all these threads. Yeah, and we are nature, so here I am being nature. And really advocating for the cultivation of new perspectives. And also hands-on learning and self-expression. So let's express. All these threads come out. Go into the stuffing. Okay. So I feel like what we're going to do here is pretty simple. I'm going to attach a piece here, attach a piece here, here, to all the sides. Or does the velvet want to be in here? Well, Motions definitely wants to. I think the velvet does. Wait. Now I'm thinking that the webbing is going to need to be in 2 parts, because when it folds, I just want it to be able to fold well. But maybe I just do a little thing like this, so it's kind of like a tab. No, that would only work for this side, ones that are actually folding that direction, you know? Oh, and I also didn't think about, do I want it to be versatile? Do I want the pants to be able to fold both directions? Yeah. I think balance and flexibility are probably important here. So, okay. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times 2, That's 16. I'm going to need 16 like 2" plus a 1/2" or 3" at 3" pieces to have enough for a 1/2" seam allowance on either side. So I need 16 3" pieces. And this one I'm gonna just measure from here because it's got a little bit of fray, so it needs a little extra. 2.5. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Motions. It's a new day now that I'm back working on this again. And after some time away, sometimes like taking space from a project is good, and with this one I realized that this material would end up being too thick. Like if I have, wait, maybe it won't. Okay, if I have one piece here, no, well, I'll have 2 pieces, and then it folds, and then all these materials. So it'll be here. Let's do a little test to see if the clamp will work. If it'll be too thick. So I'm gonna have material here and material here in case I want to flip it around this way, you know. And then the inner material, I was thinking of using part of the body, so that's pretty thin. It's not going to add much bulk. Alright. I think we can do this. Okay, moving forward. Yeah, it's a process. So instead of 16, I'm going to do 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I still really like this piece, so it's going to be a little longer than the other ones though, but that's okay. I don't want it to cut off too close to this. I want there to be some space. That's probably enough space. Like, it's almost a 1/4 inch. It's about 3/16, and then add a 1/2 inch to turn under. So let's cut it off here. Yeah, sewing is a fun language. Oh my gosh, we have 7 pieces. Oh hey, This isn't even attached because they must have stitched it on with the same stitch that they were attaching the webbing to the bag. So this can go somewhere else. And this piece can become 2 pieces now. It looks like this webbing is kind of disintegrating. Okay, well the way that I'm applying them to these pants is not going to be making them bend. And if I attach them and then they start wearing out, that's just another part of the story. So I guess I will be folding them like this. I was thinking, well, maybe I could back them, but I don't know if there's a point in backing them because I'm already attaching them here, so. Alright, so we have 8 pieces. Now I need pieces to go on the inside. And it's going to be this thinner material. Kind of like the idea of using the same it from the same area. So I'm going to cut this out about a ½ inch away from the stitch line so that I have space to fold it under. And I was going to say for the stitch line to be seen. Sometimes I want to be careful when a previous stitch line becomes the new stitch line or becomes the fold line. Just I think it's good to keep in mind and then to feel out how strong the material is. how worn the material is, if it is disintegrating. If material's starting to disintegrate, I don't think it's very, I don't think it's really worth putting that material, to, well, it's just not, I guess it's just not very careful, because if a material is worn out, what I'm getting at is that, if it's worn out, then it's already lived its life. It doesn't need to bear any weight or be strained any further, unless, oh yeah, but it's still useful. I have all this stuffing over here. There's still a place for it. So now there are all these threads in here, and I find it therapeutic to pick threads out, and actually when I was growing up, I used to pick my nails and pick my cuticles and my skin and stuff, and I don't do it as much anymore, if at all, so I find that picking threads is really satisfying. Or it can be. If I'm doing this work has taught me to be really patient. And so it's interesting because I wonder, because once I start speaking, it's no longer internal dialogue, because what I'm doing is also communicating my practice to other people. So on one hand, this is helping me to be more aware and more focused when I'm speaking out loud. But there's also something to be said for quiet contemplation. So I think another thing I want to bring to light with this practice and recording it and sharing it with people is about how much time it really takes to make things and to reassociate ourselves with the time and to fall in love with it. I don't really watch TV shows well, I did go through a period of time where I was watching a lot of documentaries, and I still do that. And I like tuning into astrology. I like listening to different astrologers and their interpretations of what is going on in the cosmos on the macro level of our existence. when I can, this is what I like to make time for. Because similar to other self-sustaining parts of our lives, it's like I listened to an interview from Emergence magazine. It was a podcast, and they were talking about they were interviewing the author who made the book talking about the Noma Fermentation Center, and how I really loved how he was saying that fermentation is like an investment in our future. And I feel like self-reflection feel very similarly about self-reflection, and yes, getting into flow, getting into our creative process and our flow. And also having this space where we're practicing patience, we're exercising that muscle in our brain that is mindful and puts care into every motion that we make, and it's intentional about that. Because the problem with doing so many mind-numbing activities is that we can lose that capacity. So let's strengthen our capacity to love and raise the vibe. Okay, so these ones, so we have I'm just laying them out so I can get a feel for the lengths, because these ones are all about the same length. And then there's this one that's a little longer. Actually, I'm going to cut it off because I wanted to save it because of this. I don't want to waste this part, but it can be stuffing. So now, okay, these are going to be 2 inches when finished and folded under. So with these ones I want to be, yeah, I do want to bring these velvet pieces in. Actually, this was another part of when I stepped away and just had time to think, I was really imagining how to bring the character of the velvet to light. And I'm thinking, if the velvet is like in the crease, let's say it's finished here and here, so the velvet is in the crease when it folds. I love that feeling. So, and I love that story. It's like our internal It's like embracing our internal softness. So there's gonna be a seam in here. These ones, there's gonna be a space between them. So there's space for the material to fold. Maybe like 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch. I need to play with that, but something around there. And then here, so I'm cutting 8 pieces. So, cutting along these parts. Just charging. Letting the energy flow through my hands, from my heart down through my shoulder, out through my shoulders, down through my arms, out through my fingers. Letting my energy flow into charging these with love, and because that's when my hands start to cramp up, is when I'm not flowing. So, and I just have to do a little bit of hand yoga. This is some good stretches. Like, there have been times when I was sewing, like production sewing, working for other companies, and just doing the same repetitive thing over and over again. And I was stretching. I Okay, so we have all these pieces. I'm going to first start out by sewing the velvet. Okay, so I gotta put a red thread in here. So this is a industrial Juki sewing machine. It's a DDL 5530N, and ideally it would have a clutch motor because it's more energy efficient and it also is easier to sew with. This is my friend's machine. We used to share a studio together, and then she moved out and she doesn't, so I'm using it until she has space for it and wants it back. But meanwhile, because she doesn't have that much space, I lent her my Bernina machine. It's that I got off Craigslist. It's like an old Bernina in a red case, and it's all metal. It does a straight stitch and a zigzag stitch, and it just works really well. It's probably from like the 70s or something, and it's still going strong. I mean, it's good to dust and to oil things. With this Juki machine, it has an oil pan at the bottom, so I don't need to oil it, but I do need to change the oil every so often, like maybe every year or so. Just check it, and so that's the motor starting up. So I'm going to do a pre-stitch. You don't have to do a pre-stitch, but it does make sewing easier. Good. So you might notice that I'm just sewing with it's a less than a 1/4 inch seam allowance, but I'm just using the edge of the foot as a guide. Since I cut the seam allowance for these pieces to be a 1/2 inch, then sewing this one at a 1/4 will just make it so the stitch line is going to be hidden. Actually, I might sew these at 3/8 because this full part is like just a little over a 1/2. Now I'm going to stitch these ones right sides together, and the right side, well, the right side is whatever you want the right side to be. It's just what I'm calling the side that's going to be facing when it's finished. And the back side is what's going to be hidden. And I like the contrast. So actually,
Like, I like the contrast in, because the face side of the original bag was faded and the inside is not as faded. But I think that's beautiful to bring them together like that, and then to have this in the middle, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just leaving a little extra off here because this one's pretty frayed at the edge and I want to give it a chance to catch, to be caught in the seam. So on my machine, it has little lines that show where the 1/2 inch seam allowance would be, where the 3/4 inch, and you can see these lines here. I find they're not very exact. The plate is not exact with the foot. I don't really know why, but I know that when I line it up with the one right here, it's going to be about 3/8, so I'm just going to go with that. And if your machine doesn't have lines like that, you can always put a piece of tape down and then draw it on. Or even if it does and you just want to draw your own lines. Like, I think I used to have one on here, so I knew it was exact. So if I'm ever in doubt about the material being flipped the right way or the wrong way, I just line it up how I want it to be finished, and then I find where the seam allowance, where it needs to be sewn on the inside, and just let it fall into the place that it is. And sometimes that's easier than making my brain turn inside out and backwards. Because even then it still might get flipped. I just like how sewing is like really a visual language. So the stitch length is small enough right now to where I probably don't have to do a back tack, because these edges are going to be flipped under anyways, so the stitch will be caught anyways. And if the stitches can catch themselves in another seam, it reduces bulk and thread use to back tack. Okay, so now I have my little patches. Oh my gosh, they're so cute. I'm gonna flip the pants inside out, because then when I sew in the tunnel, I know I'm not gonna be sewing the pant leg closed. So it's in the tunnel now, and I can just inch my way to the mark. There's a mark. That's not the mark that I'm looking for. So, thread. The reason I use this thread is because it's the red thread that was closest to me, but also it's like Garmin weight. If I was actually sewing luggage, this is more of decoration, and then I would say function. But the function is also decoration because the clamp, it's going to be clamped. But if I was sewing a piece of luggage that was going to hold a lot of weight, I would use a much thicker thread. And probably a bigger needle too. Oh, we passed the mark. You know, maybe I should pin all of this on there first, because then I know it's going to be in the place that I want it to be, and that's just the best way to sew patches. So because when doing applique, it can get shifty. Yeah, so I decided to not pin this right now, because yeah. So going into into the tunnel. Looking for those clamp marks. Are the clamp marks hidden in the tunnel? Let's mark it. Marking. Yeah. Sometimes, like, I catch myself thinking of, times when people didn't believe in me, and it's really not about that. It's just about believing in myself. You know? So right here, I feel like that's, I don't think that's the right place. So I'm just checking out the clamps on both sides And it seems like there are different places on each leg. And I want to just roll with that, but it's not going to be able to fold if it's not lining up. Well, it's not going to be able to fold flat. So I'm going to go somewhere in between. Hey. Cool. They actually were lined up. Well, I adjusted it a little bit, but they were pretty lined up. It was just that the legs weren't lined up. The hem of the legs weren't lined up. So here we go. Doing this feels like tattooing the second skin. So we're in the tunnel. And I can line up the edge here, the edge of the webbing with the inside of the foot, this side of the inside of the foot, so that, and just look at this part, because if I were to sew looking at the needle's going up and down, and that's not gonna give me a steady focus when sewing. So that's why I pick these parts to focus on where I'm going to line something up. So I'm going to line the edge of this up with inside right here, and then the needle is aligned in the center between these 2 feet, so there's just like a 1/16 of an inch overhang that it can catch on. And actually, I might move it over a bit since it's so thick. Maybe do like an 1/8 of an inch overhang. And the corduroy is pretty thick. The corduroy is about an 1/8 of an inch. So when I pivot, I'm going to have the needle down. Can you see into the tunnel? Okay, I think this is better if you can see into the tunnel now. So, posture and deep breaths. Deep breaths like you can breathe deeply all day long while you're washing the dishes. Sewing, walking. Okay, so what I've done is I started here, I went around, and then I came back up overlapping the first row of stitching, and that's going to lock the thread. That's the same function of a back tack. And look, we're right here, just in line. For our next one. And take that pin out there before I sew onto it, because sewing on pins, if you hit the pin with your needle, then it will dull the needle. And then you'll have to put a new needle in. Or I will. Speak for myself. Okay. So I just want to make sure that it's spread out evenly by the time it gets to the next. By the time it gets up here. So we have our pair of patches. Don't want that sticking out. Clipping threads to clip the back one too, so it's not pulling. So now I've come all the way around all four sides, and I'm going to finish off by overlapping on the first side. And we can clip our threads. breaths. Okay. So that was the back of the leg. So I can move around to the front of the leg. Hopefully that was the right part. Yeah, that was the right part. Flippy flip. Oh, that's perfect, because now when it folds this way, there's enough space. See, if I would have butted them up together, it would have caused strain. This gives it enough room to roll, because fabric is pretty two-dimensional in a lot of ways, but it's actually three-dimensional. And it's actually multi-dimensional, because it does transcend time and space in a lot of ways. I guess in any way that matter cannot be energy, matter as energy, and energy cannot be destroyed. Only transformed. And just because humans make clothes doesn't mean that they're aware of the multidimensionality of reality. But I would posture and deep breaths. Overlapping. So I imagine my character as Remaker as anyone who is passionate about restoring, and I think kind of beyond restoring. I mean, we're recreating a new paradigm from like the phoenix rising from the ashes. Like, we're not we're not just starting from nowhere. We're starting with where we're at. And so for me, it's not about restoring anything back to how it was before. That's impossible. It's about reglow. It's about our vitality. Restoring our vitality in relation with our environment. And so things that we put into the landfill, there are other places for those things to go. That can actually give us more meaning in how we narrate our lives and the stories that we tell ourselves. Especially when we're taking action, when we're actively changing that narrative to be reflective and to be intentional and to grow, to not just get stagnant, to not just become stagnant in paths that were paved before, because those paths in a lot of ways are what have created the stagnancy. So I'm not sure when that cut off, but I was talking about restoration and old paradigm and new paradigm, and how in restoration it's about restoring our vitality and our relationships with the environments. It's not about restoring old paradigm. We're stepping into a new one, and we have to start with where we're at. So I think the first thing for me is to clear out any kind of stagnancy. Stagnancy in the mind-matter world is the same thing. So stagnancy in allowing my passion to really fuel my energy. Not getting hung up. It's there. It's there for a reason. And when I'm able to take action about it, charge all these materials with my love. So, we are edge stitching, applique, I want to also be a resource for vocabulary or answering questions. So please, I'm creating this video to post on YouTube, and please comment any questions you have. Okay, we're coming around, doing our last. We've gone around all four sides, and now I'm going to the last overlap. Well, not the last overlap. And yes, this is a ruler. 1/8 inch marks. But trust me, I do love the metric system too. I also love abstract units, made up units. That's probably my favorite. But you know, units, well, you know, because I'm thinking about units and how different systems, like the metric system, came from France, and okay, now we're on the back. So the metric system came from France, and talking about colonialism. Versus local systems. Just thinking how universal systems, once established, you know, it created a language that could go between and be a global language. And that ability is part of the story in how mass production has catalyzed. So upon returning to our personal lives, our local communities, I mean, there's a time and place and nuances of this existence to navigate. I'm not here to tell anybody how to live. I'm here to question, to wonder, and to question, and to contextualize the reglow. Okay, so we're still doing the edge stitch, lining the foot up with the edge of the material. Wherever you want, just pick a spot on the foot for the material to line up and focus on that as you move it through the machine. At least that's what I'm doing. That's what I learned. I love this one. I didn't take the stitches out of this one because I liked them. It's kind of farther away than I wanted it to be, but oh well. It's got some space. I wanted some space. Posture and breathing. Okay. So we've got them on here. And the next thing to do is to attach the other sides. So let's flip. Well, first I want to make sure I trim all my threads. So I got all the pieces on. I got all the webbing pieces on. Now I need to attach these inner pieces. I'm just trimming making sure I have all the insides trimmed. before we move on. I've already done some alterations to these pants, like I hemmed them up. I didn't cut the hem though. Because I wasn't committed to the length. I also took them in. I took them in the back at the waist, through the back seam. Okay, let's see what happened. Let's see if we put everything the way that we intended. Okay. Huh. Wow. Not so much. It looks like we did 2 of them going the right way, or the way we intended, and 2 of them going the way that we did not intend. But I think we're just gonna go with it, because I don't want to take all this, I don't want to take everything out. So what I'm gonna do now is just pin these on here. I want the velvet to be pointing downwards. I could just pin that too. We're gonna open the door to wonder. Took a Tai Chi workshop yesterday, and that's one thing I learned. It was a motion. It was a motion to open the door to wonder. I mean, I could have my own motion for it. Just some kind of way to move and express an idea. Just opening the door to wonder, breathing, being gentle with myself. Okay. Get those pinned. These ones pinned. Being gentle with others too. And allowing them space in my awareness to grow. All these deep thoughts. Okay. Going into the tunnel of love. As my pants are flipped inside out. Okay. So, I have it pinned as an estimation, just to place it. What I really want is, starts right here. This is the orientation. Oh, okay. So, let's get into this flow of living life, of letting go. This moment, red folding. Like pages of your travel book. Like walking on your knees. Like inner velvet stories. Like wellness praising glories, this flow, it knows cycles. And we sing upon our mountain top. Resting
pick up feelings from my tools, like my little snips. They have a very sharp feeling right into my perception. They really slice through lies and illusions. And they cut the thread. Like cutting cords when people need to establish their own relationship with the divine. We all are capable of this because it's our nature. Coming back around. Feeling when it's all lined up. Sometimes it's fun to line up when we're overlapping stitches. Sometimes it's fun to line up the overlapping stitches exactly in the same needle holes. I just got pricked by a needle on the other leg. I was thinking of how long these videos are and how they'll be received. Yeah, I wonder. Okay, so we're gonna do the same thing on this one. Where I want to line it up with the center. Line the velvet up with the center. And it was about like one corduroy away from the edge of the webbing. That's my unit's corduroy stripes. Oh. Needle. Thread go through the needle. Thread's not caught, but will be soon. So yeah, I'd love to hear about the projects
you're working on, and if you have any questions, I'd love to hear the stories. I'd love to hear about your flow and your relationship to the materials. I was talking with a friend today about something it's really coming to light with this kind of work is, well, with this work is how when we neglect ourselves, when we check out, when we don't exercise our mental capacities of creating a life full of love and wonder and joy, then they get programmed by the things that we consume, and we lose our autonomy, we lose our choice on how we think when we let others think for us. So cultivating this practice, I love sewing just for the reflective aspect and the embodied aspect. And the movement of the materials, the life of the materials. I mean, so thank you for taking the time for yourself and for creating your story. Because by now we know that how we feel is, it's connected to, can be connected to our appearance, but how we feel is ultimately a result of our flow. If we get blocked up and stagnant, we tend to wither. Even taking time out for yourself and reflecting and journaling, like instead of to counteract the spiraling of negativity and victimization. So when you feel yourself going on those spirals, if you catch yourself, you can just imagine a portal that leads to mystery. Life is a mystery.
There's space for mystery. There's space for the unexpected, for the unknown. And when we tune into that, it can really relieve us of thinking the worst, even if it's real neglect and real things we've experienced. If we hold on to it, it's just going to keep happening. If we let it go, if we choose to walk towards a new state of being, that's when we can really transform. Alright, clipping all my threads. I got one leg down. I'm happy that I'm getting to work on these before winter's over. Actually, I think today's Groundhog Day, so I don't know how much longer it's going to be cold. But these will be warm. This will give me warmth. Okay, again, let's line this velvet inner softness up with the center, like the center of our hearts, the center of our being, the center of our knowing that we are all love. Going right over the knee, right over the right knee. If I was sewing something different, that if I was putting patches onto a material that didn't have a pattern to follow, a woven pattern to follow, I would most likely have, and I was doing applique on it, I would have most likely basted the thing first. But since come on, stripes, we can find a place
where we live, along the cord. Corded pants. So with this, I have the cords to follow, and I'm hoping that it turns out and it's not twisting and pulling, although it would more likely be perfect if I had basted it. But that's perfection anyways. The love that went into it. Is it the way that we forgive ourselves, the way that we accept and receive the flow? Is that the way we love? Is that the way we Any stitch made with love is a stitch worth making. One more patch. We're going to the back of the right leg. Right? Is this it? Yes? Left? Is it the back of the left leg? Left? Left? Oh! It is here. It is here. This is the back of the right leg. Into the tunnel. And I do have this piece. Emotions. This is here. And I do have some more velvet. So, well, I have more where that came from. From that velvet jacket of my childhood. It's from Old Navy. I love that jacket. I'm pretty sure my younger sisters loved it too. Oh. Okay, so ran out of bobbin on the last square. We ran out of bobbin before we could fully overlap. I like to overlap at least 1 inch. It looks like it only overlapped like 2 stitches, but oh, a little more than that. We can pull the top thread to the back, and we can tie them all together, and I won't have to worry about winding enough thread for the bobbin. So if we can just tie it off with my hands manually. I'm going to do a square knot. So a square knot is when you're looping the threads together, you hold 2 threads, 1 in either hand. I'm actually holding 3 threads, but one of them is just paired along with this 1 thread. So if I hold my threads in both hands, a square knot will be going first, making a cross, left over right, and then making a cross right over left, and that's how the knot is formed, and it should lock the thread. I did 2 square knots, so we should be good to go. Okay, now with the motions, let's check out the pants. I'm gonna flip them. Okay. I think I want to put it like this.
So I'm just gonna stick a dark navy blue thread into the bobbin. I don't think I have a black one wound right now, so I'm not going to worry about it because it's going to be in the back, and even if it was to show, that would be a decision to make. Or just something that appeared in the path that offers a link to attaching this. So I'm just going to pin it on here. And, oh, it didn't even go through. Okay, let's try again. It's a pretty thick patch. Okay, now it's pinned on. Just so that by the time I get to the inside, I don't have to flip my brain inside out. So here we are. Motions. Motions on the top of the left knee. Statement for honest expression in the left, in the yang motion. In the grounded yang, on top like the sky, it's above, yet woven below. The motions of our emotions. Alright. So I've done it. I'll show you.